You know, 37 years is a long time, but that's how long since we've had a Triple Crown winner. Can you believe that? Since affirmed. And this horse called American Pharoah just did it. And Bob Baffert, who's the trainer of the year, I mean, it's been simply amazing. That one animal, he just smoked him. But to win Belmont, it's 1.5 miles, and he was out by about 6 lengths ahead of the others. Amazing.
It was a great race.
It was a great race. You watched?
Yes.
Everybody watched.
We watched,
All
we
right.
cheered.
Well, it was fun. Well, more important in the news, you would never believe it. You would never believe it. You got the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia spouting hatred, but yet these longtime adversaries in the most dangerous region in the world, the Middle East, have been meeting behind closed doors, working together secretly against a common enemy, Iran. Who are these people? Israel and Saudi Arabia.
The two countries spoke publicly in Washington last week about their unprecedented cooperation against the deadly nuclear program in Iran. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
At the Council on Foreign Relations, Israel's incoming Director General of the Foreign Ministry, Dori Gold, met with Anwar Majed Eski, his Saudi Arabian counterpart. These historic enemies sent the same message. Iran is trying to take over the Middle East, and it must be stopped. At the event, Israel and Saudi Arabia revealed they have met 5 times in the last year and a half in secret. That revelation and the rare public meeting seemed designed to send a clear message to President Obama's White House.
The Saudi message is basically President Obama listened to Prime Minister Netanyahu. The Saudis identify fully with the Israeli perception of the Iranian threat. They totally disagree with the very naive misperception of Iran by President Obama.
Iranian press TV even covered the event, and the timing of the meeting seemed planned. It fell in the shadow of the June 30th deadline for the nuclear talks in Lausanne, Switzerland, between Iran, the U.S., and 5 other world powers.
In fact, the Saudis and the Israelis are very, very concerned about President Obama being preoccupied with Lausanne, which conflicts dramatically with the reality in the Persian Gulf. In fact, the Iranians are trying to topple every single pro-American Arab regime.
Former Israeli Ambassador Yoram Ettinger says the threat Iran poses explains the change in relations.
And as far as the Saudis are concerned, Israel constitutes the most effective life insurance which they have right now in face of Iran.
While Saudi Arabia, a major Sunni power, and Israel have been enemies for decades, they both see Shiite Iran's nuclear program as a threat to their very existence. Huge differences remain between these two historic foes, but for now their alliance seems a classic example of the Middle East maxim, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
That's an amazing alliance, and if Egypt will come on board and Jordan comes on board, all of a sudden you have a coalition of the willing and the able against Iran. And despite of what the fantasy that is in the mind of Obama, you just don't understand what he's hoping for, but whatever it is, it doesn't square with reality. Well, in other news, the leaders of the strongest economies in the world are taking a united stand against Vladimir Putin because of his actions in Ukraine. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. Here's John.
Thanks, Pat. Russia and the Islamic terrorists of ISIS topped the agenda as those G7 leaders met in Germany this weekend. While sanctions against Russia will be maintained, some leaders may be starting to question America's strategy on foreign policy. Gary Lane has that story.
Russia missed the summit for the 2nd year in a row. That's because the leaders of the world's top industrialized democracies kicked Moscow out of their annual meeting after it annexed Crimea from Ukraine. Russia was further isolated when the G7 imposed sanctions against it last year. That's because the country was involved in the annexation of Crimea and in arming pro-Russian rebels in Ukraine. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, host of this year's summit, shared a beer with President Obama Sunday in the German Alps. President Obama revealed what was on his mind.
Standing up to Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Both Mr. Obama and the German Chancellor agreed sanctions against Russia should not be lifted until President Putin fully implements terms of the peace accord reached in Minsk last February. Putin says the West has nothing to fear from Russia. Its actions in Crimea, Ukraine, and elsewhere are simply defensive, not offensive actions. Some European officials agree, and they may move to weaken the sanctions against Russia, with or without the United States and Germany. Also of concern to the G7 leaders, the war against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. The general in charge of the effort to recapture Ramadi and other areas in Anbar province says the Iraqi military has secured the defensive lines leading to Baghdad. Still, some of the European leaders don't think President Obama's strategy is working. And with ISIS making gains in both Iraq and Syria, and Russia's Putin flexing his muscle in Ukraine and around the world, President Obama's foreign policy decisions are being called into question, not only by critics in the U.S., but also by some of America's closest allies. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Thanks, Gary. A major defeat for Turkey's Islamic-rooted ruling party in Sunday's election as it lost its majority in parliament. President Erdogan's AKP party finished the election with about 41% of the vote. That's considered a stunning rebuke of Erdogan's ambitions to expand his power in a new presidential system. The opposition thanked the voters.
I want to express my gratitude and thank all my citizens who have voted. I hope this election will improve our democracy and freedom and spreads welfare in a far-reaching way to everyone.
And Pat, Turkey now has 45 days to form a new government.
Well, I think we should all be grateful for the wisdom of the Turkish electorate in curbing Erdogan's ambitions, because Erdogan was moving more and more toward an Islamic dictatorship. He wanted to take power. He wanted to be essentially a sole president instead of a parliamentary leader. And what his desire was, is seemingly, was to turn his country into an Islamic dictatorship. The voters said no, and we should all breathe a sigh of relief, because Turkey is a major player in the Middle East. John?
Pat, here at home, the number of abortions is falling in almost every state. That's according to a new survey by the Associated Press. It finds that abortions have declined both in states where new laws make it harder to have them, as well as in states where they're protected by legislation. Abortions are down around 12% across the country since 2010. Pro-choice advocates attribute the drop to more availability of effective contraceptives, while pro-life advocates say the drop is due to a shift in attitudes, with more women deciding to carry their pregnancies to term. Well, it was a tough game for NBA MVP Steph Curry last night as he missed 18 of 23 shots, giving Cleveland a win over Curry's Golden State Warriors to tie up the finals at 1 game each. Curry promised one bad game won't hurt his confidence, and he's had some memorable press conferences this season, with his 2-year-old daughter scoring plenty of attention. And that's had some reporters turn up the heat on the young star, who champions his Christian faith, his family, and fatherhood. Ephraim Graham brings us the story.
Stephen Curry has been called one of the best pure shooters in basketball, and his skill has helped land the Golden State Warriors a spot in the NBA Finals for the first time in 40 years.
He's an unbelievable competitor, wants to win, but more important than anything is his relationship.
As the team's longtime chaplain, Earl Smith has seen many of Curry's relationships on and off the court. Most importantly, his willingness to share his faith in Jesus Christ.
He is what you see. He lives it fully, and he enjoys life because he has peace with his life. He has a relationship that far exceeds a three-point shot, far exceeds accolades that are in the arena. He's a family man. He loves his wife. He loves his daughter.
That love for his 2-year-old Riley has played out in post-game press conferences.
Be quiet.
We're both supposed to help our team win.
The celebration that we had after Game 5 with my family, and
be as normal as possible. And obviously she's got a personality that's pretty electric and loves that scene, but there's no motive, there's just me and her hanging out.
But the Warriors MVP has taken some heat from reporters for the daddy-daughter time in front of the camera. One tweeting, "Curry's kid is cute. That doesn't mean she should have been at the presser."
That really bothered me, and the reason it bothered me is because the question keeps coming up, where are the fathers, where are the dads? And here was a guy that truly had a daughter that was loving on her dad, loving to be with her dad.
At a time when athletes routinely make headlines for abuse, Chaplain Earl Smith calls these moments,
We gotta take a week. Okay. Take a week off to get ready.
a missed opportunity.
Maybe the interview should have changed. Maybe it should have taken a different direction and talked about in a time when there's a question about athletes, a question about fathers and the relationship with their children.
Enjoying the moment.
I feel best.
You wanted to say that.
I'm gonna enjoy those times with my daughter regardless of how much pub she gets or what happens with wherever cameras are pointing our way, because that's a special time.
I think she's taking advantage of the moment for sure.
And little Riley will soon get some company off the court, with a baby brother or sister expected next month. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
And as Ephraim was saying, Curry's post-game time could get a little more crowded soon. He and his wife, Aisha, are expecting their second child in July. And Pat, it's so great to see such a positive example of fatherhood.
It certainly is, and we commend him for that, and we also commend him for the fact that he's an extraordinary athlete. So those two going together, congratulations.